Welcome back to another Spot On chat. I'm Rebecca Monet with Zorakle Profiles. We provide profiling tools to franchisors and to franchise brokers that help facilitate a right fit between a prospective franchisee and a franchise system. So today I have Shannon Wilburn, CEO and co-founder of Just Between Friends with me once again. So thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Rebecca.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. And as always, I have a question because curious minds want to know, right?
Yeah.
So I've been observing your company for a long time. I'm kind of an observer by nature and kind of vicariously live through franchisors and what they're doing.
Known
And
each other for a while.
I know it's been, I'm going
Awesome.
to say 10 years or so.
Probably. Yeah.
So, but you have a classic example of a franchise culture that we would define at Zorakle as a collaborative culture.
Mhm.
So was this deliberate? I mean, I know the business plan in and of itself, where you're collaborating with your vendors to sell their products, their used
Right.
items,
Mhm.
that's collaborative, but it's also very collaborative with the community and then with charities. And then they're collaborative with one another, right? Don't the franchisees also
Great.
put on events together? So was this the plan from the start, or did the culture sort of evolve into a collaborative culture? And what
It
do
was
you
not,
do to nurture it?
there was no great plan. There definitely was. I would love to say that it was very strategic from the start, but I don't think I have a strategic bone in my body. I have people who are very strategic on my behalf, and I pay to be on my executive team that have high strategy as their number one skill, but that is not Shannon Wilburn. So I will tell you, thinking about our concept. So we're a marketplace for families to buy and sell gently used children's and maternity clothes, toys, and baby equipment. So think about on a large scale, just to help your audience know what we are. Our franchise owners host events 2 times a year in large facilities like a fairgrounds or a convention center or an old Best Buy, something like that. And they set up a temporary pop-up store where families from the community bring in their gently used children's and maternity items that they've tagged at home. And then families come in and shop those gently used items. So shoppers are saving anywhere from 50 to 90% off retail. And you mentioned charity. So after the event is over, the families that brought items to sell, they have the opportunity to donate unsold items. And not everyone does, but probably about 50% of our sellers, we call them consigners, donate their unsold items to a local charity at the end of the event. So there's a lot of people who win in this scenario. And for one to be successful, the other has to be successful. And so I think that's the nature of our concept.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want to talk about the collaborative effort of our franchise owners. And they don't necessarily host events together. Like every franchise owner has their own event, their own territory, their own zip
Got
code
it.
that they market to. But as in any brand, your lowest performing franchise kind of can sometimes give the brand a bad name sometimes. And so we want all of our franchises, of course, to have a good reputation in their community.
Sure.
When Devin and I started the company in 1997 in my living room, we then franchised the concept in 2003. But between 1997 and 2003, we had helped 10 other people get started in other states, and not altruistically or anything like that. It was just, we didn't know any better. So we had helped people and said, you can use the name Just Between Friends. So when we started franchising, we had asked those owners to become our first franchisees, and they did. So what happened over the course from 1997 to 2003, yes, Devin and I started the first Just Between Friends, but 6 months later, someone started one, an hour and a half down the highway from us. And then we collaborated with her, like, what are you doing? How are you marketing? How are you doing this? And then one started in Florida. And so we're like, okay, oh, she's getting consigners this way and she's getting shoppers this way. Oh, that was a good idea. So there was collaboration in the very fabric of the concept from the beginning. So it wasn't just Shannon Wilburn and Devin Tackett, the co-founders of Just Between Friends, that came up with all of these ideas and concepts and everything. It was every person that had their own consignment, kids consignment event was contributing to the brand. And so because that's how it started, that was just a part of our culture. Like when you come into the brand, if you have an idea, you share it, pilot it in your location, get permission, pilot it in your location. But if it works, share it.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't need piloting, and it's an innovative idea, go ahead and share it. We even have a award that we give away at our annual conference called Best Idea or something. I mean, it's not very creative, but something like Best Idea of the Year or something. And the conference planning committee is the one who kind of chooses that person. And so you can nominate people, or you can self-nominate if you feel like you had a great idea that other people used. And we usually have 30 or 40 ideas throughout the year that are things that our franchise owners came up with, and then maybe a handful implemented this one or a handful implemented this one, but there's usually one or two that got implemented system-wide, and that person usually wins the award. But it just goes to show that our franchise owners are very collaborative. They want their fellow franchise owners to do well. A Facebook group where they share. And I don't think this was a strategic move on our part, but I do want to tell you something. So back in, it's probably been 11 or 12 years ago, I was at the International Franchise Association convention, and someone told me about Franchise Business Review. So it was a survey that you could send out to your franchise owners, and you could be if you did this, you could be, if your franchise owners were highly satisfied. This was a satisfaction survey. So you want to know if your franchise owners are satisfied, and if they're satisfied, you could get in the top 50 of highly satisfied franchise owners. And I wanted that title.
Of course.
I wanted our franchise owners to be highly satisfied, but I wasn't willing to pay for the survey results. It was really expensive, and I didn't have, it felt like it was really expensive. Looking back, it probably would have been money well spent.
Oh, absolutely.
I wasn't getting the results. So we were participating in surveying our franchise owners. This is a rookie mistake. Don't ever do this. Don't ever have your franchise owners fill out a survey and then don't look at the results. So that was what I was doing. Well, I sat down at a round table at IFA, and Melanie Bergeron, with 2 Men in a Truck, the daughter of the founder of 2 Men in a Truck, past chair of International Franchise Association, just wonderful woman. This was the first time that I had met her, and I actually sat at her table because I was
lucky you.
I wanted to sit right next to her. So I was strategic in that, and that I wanted to meet her and kind of get to know her. And it got to the point we started talking about the FBR survey, and I was like, well, we're in the top 50, but I don't get the results. And she chastised me in front of the entire round table. And she said, Shannon, she said, in her way, in her sweet, humble way, she chastised me. She was like, Shannon, you are missing a huge opportunity to know what your franchise owners are saying. And from that day forward, Devin and I decided we're going to pay for the results. And so franchise owners are very honest, and we want them to be. We don't want to live in some world where we think they're satisfied, but they're really talking bad about us. Like, we want them to be satisfied. We want to be doing a good job supporting our franchise owners with marketing, with leadership, with core values, with training, all of the things that a franchisor is supposed to do. We want to be doing those things, but at that time, we weren't listening to our franchisees. And so
too busy doing other things.
Yeah. And why that didn't even occur to me, which again, but thankfully, Melanie pointed me in the right direction, and we've always gotten those results. So we do that survey every year, and our staff pores over the results because we want to get better results next year, and we want our franchise owners to be satisfied. And they they are very, very engaged. We have many task force formations. We have committees. I have a franchise advisory council. One of the things that I feel like they're super collaborative on is our conference planning committee. And I know not every brand has a conference planning committee, but this has been a huge success for us, because we would have our conference and we would get our evaluations back, and they're like, we want this person. We want John Maxwell. I'm like, okay, $500,000 later, I know that money, but they would give us their opinions because we asked in these evaluations. And I would always get discouraged reading the evaluations, like, man, we could have done a better job, and man, we could have done this or whatever. And someone brought it to my attention that we needed to get their input. I think it was someone on my executive team. They're like, we need to get their input. And so we started a conference planning committee. And so now what we do is, when we look at the content time for our annual conference, the Franchise Support Center corporate has half the content time, and the conference planning committee has half the content time. And so that way we get to talk about the next initiative that we're doing, or if we need to have a come to Jesus meeting with the system, or if I want to do a State of the Union, that's in my content time. If they want to do roundtables, if they want to talk about how to get customers, how to get consigners, and that way it works out, because everyone gets what they need. And so our conference provides a lot of high value for our franchise owners, and it's not mandatory but that they come, but we still have great attendance at our conferences. So that's something highly collaborative. They root for one another, which I'm proud of.
So this collaborative culture, we happen to at Zorakle use the University of Michigan model to measure culture.
Okay.
And this collaborative culture that you have created accidentally, and now more purposefully, by using FBR data, by having the conference committees, by asking for best practices and ideas. So by accident, you've gotten there, and now you're more deliberately doing it. But according to the University of Michigan, a collaborative culture is the most satisfying culture to be a part of.
Yeah.
So it gives a feeling of I'm part of something bigger. Right. So it's not just about I'm part of a bigger family. I'm part of an idea. And that's what you have.
And making it better.
And making it better. And my voice means something, whether it's by taking that FBR survey, or sitting on that committee, or offering certain best practices or ideas as a franchisee. I know that Shannon and her team are going to read those, listen to those ideas, and potentially incorporate them. So this collaborative culture is so satisfying, but it is not the easiest thing to create. Right? Now, so I love that you gave a couple of suggestions for any franchisors that are listening of how to purposefully, consciously, not just accidentally, create this collaborative culture, because it creates incredible retention ultimately with our franchisees. Never mind, they're happy and they're talking and they're excited and all of that.
At one point, we were measuring engagement. And I haven't done it in a couple of years, but there were probably for about 5 years in a row, at the end of the year, I would think about the task force appointments that we had, or whatever we had offered for franchise owners to get involved in, whatever it was. At the end of the year, I would go through and say, okay, that person served on that committee. This person was on our marketing brand fund committee. This person was on our technology task force. This person serves on the FAC, blah, blah, blah. And getting a number of the percentage of franchise owners that were engaged.
Love it.
In that way, just based on whatever criteria you would call engaged, right? And and we touted that number in our State of the Union, like, this is how many engaged franchise owners we had. Because you're exactly right, Rebecca. It does. I know I want to be listened to. If I'm part of something and want it to do well, I would love to give my advice or opinion, and whether it's taken or not, just allowing me to have a voice in something that I care about. During this coronavirus season, JBF, just like many brands probably has a coronavirus task force or a COVID-19 task force. We have done that, and we actually have 23 people on this task force, which I know is very large for a task force. My director of training and support is in charge of was in charge of the formation, and kind of took ideas of people like, we need innovative thinkers who can find ideas, revenue generating opportunities during this time, and what is it going to look like when we get back to business as usual? Will business ever look like it used to look? Probably not. What are we going to need to do? And so they have been meeting 2 times a week for the last, I think this is the 3rd week, coming up with ideas and starting to execute on some of those ideas. But, you know, you have a lot of people who are very invested in the brand, as well they should. Some of our top achieving franchise owners, they are concerned, like, are my shoppers going to come back? Are they going to need to stand 6 feet apart, 10 feet apart? Is everyone going to wear a mask? Are we going to fog our events? You know, all of these things that we need to be thinking about. But yes, the corporate entity, the franchise support center, could come up with answers to these things, and I could put my paid staff and team, but they don't necessarily have they're not a franchise owner.
Right.
And therefore, they're not probably going to be as creative as maybe someone who is in the brand and cares about that consignor coming back when they do open their doors, and how can we make that happen? So just a gal on my executive team, Diane Davis, she always says the franchise owners have the answer to this.
They do.
To ask.
They do.
So
she's right. She's absolutely right. Well, I congratulate you for creating this collaborative culture, and I'm hoping franchisors that are listening to that will take some tips from you in creating it, that franchisees are on the front line. They do have the answers. We just have to ask them to participate and to share them with us, and create an environment, a culture that encourages that, and then reward it with the rewards at conference that says the most innovative, the most creative, or inspiring idea. But to create a culture like this and nurture it, is ultimately going to garner great results, not just financially, but in terms of franchisee satisfaction and franchisee retention. So thanks.
I'm really proud of my franchise owners for the giving back attitude that they have, not only to their community, but also to the brand itself. So I feel very blessed to get to work with so many smart franchise owners.
You are indeed blessed. Yeah. Thanks again, Shannon, for spending time with me, and I will see you on the next round